Okay, hello everybody. The reason why I'm making this video is because I haven't seen much information on how you can interact with the Hedera's network and also how you can authenticate such a crypto wallet. So we will be going through the backend to see how we can create new accounts, and then also to the front end to see how we can authenticate such an application, and also how I'm interacting with the Hedera's network. I will not be going through the UI in this video, but if there's some interest, I will create a video on how you can create such an application from start till the end with the UI and everything then, and the deployment as well. But for now, this is 8flaw.com. You can check it out yourself to see what I have created. And let's just go through the workflow to see how it's all functioning. So this is the landing page. The user then clicks enter. Let me just reset. And he then needs to pick his wallet name and a password. Like so. And then he gets two options here, either creating a new account and importing an existing one. If importing an existing one, he then needs to enter the Hedera account ID and then the private key and click import. This will then save the account or the wallet to the local storage and encrypt it using the password user has set. And if he clicks on create new, a 24-word key phrase gets generated, or a mnemonics object. He then needs to copy this to the clipboard or save it, as this can be used to recover his account and also for security reasons. And then on the next step, there will be a couple of words missing here. So the user then needs to enter the missing words. And if they are entered correctly, then he can do create. And at this point, we are sending to the backend these 24 words, and we are generating from them a new Hedera account. And the user will then get back his wallet ID, the private key, and then also the public key. And once he enters, this account or the wallet has now been saved into the local storage. So if we go to the application and local storage, here's the wallet that is encrypted now with the user's password. So once he signs in again with the password, these will get decrypted and the client will get started using his credentials, so he can then send transactions and then view his account. So this is then the dashboard. He can see how many HBARs he has. He can send to another account, and he can also view his history here. If we sign out right now, and user wants to enter again, he then just needs to enter his password, which will decrypt the information that is saved in our local storage, and it will initiate the Hedera's client with that ID and private key that we just got from the backend. So that's about it for the actual workflow. Now let's take a look at the backend. Let's then get started with the backend first. First of all, you're going to need Node.JS installed on your computer. If you don't have it yet, just go to nodejs.org and grab it from here. Once you have that, we can go ahead and open up our terminal, where we are going to need to install the Nest.JS CLI for initiating an empty Nest.JS project easily. So just do npm install -global and then Nest.js/CLI. Once you have that installed, you can then navigate into the folder where you want to create your Nest.js project. In my case, I already am. And you can just do nest new and then the name of the project. I'm just going to call it Hedera in my case. Enter, and we can just use npm. And this is going to take a while. Okay, I'm now 2 years older, and we can go ahead and get started by opening the project up in Visual Studio Code. So this is the structure of a Nest.js project. We have the app controller, where our endpoint will go into, and then the app service or our logic will go into. Before we get started with anything, we need to first install the Hashgraph package. So do npm install @hashgraph SDK. This will enable us to interact with the Hedera network. And after you run that command, you will also need to get a testnet account. So just go to portal.hedera.com/register and create a testnet account. With this, you will get the private key, your own public key, and then the account ID. This will be used to initiate the client and then just interact with the network. So after you have this, we can go ahead and create a .environment file here at the root of our project. So the .environment, and here we are going to be storing our account ID and our private key. So just do Hedera private and store your private key here, and Hedera account, where you can then store your account ID. These will usually come from the environment variables from your server in production mode, but we can just grab these from this .environment file here. After you have that, we can go to the controller where we can create our endpoint. This is going to be a post endpoint, and it's going to be located at /create. After you have that, this is going to be an asynchronous function, so to create account, and inside the body of this request, we are going to be sending a mnemonics object, which is basically an object with 24 words, and we are going to be sending these words from the front end and then using them on the back end to create a new Hedera account. So do mnemonic, and this is going to be of type mnemonic. Doesn't want to auto import, so we can do it manually here. Import, and then from add Hashgraph SDK. We could just import it like this. Okay, we have that, and this function is going to return a promise. Let's do it of any type for now, and we're going to do a try catch block here. Try. We're going to be getting the account from our app service, which is where our account will get created. We will create the create account function later on, and this function will accept our mnemonics object here. Then we can just return this account to the user, and we can do a catch here with the error, and then just return like so. Oops, return, and then the error here, and we can just say something like create account failed, for example. Failed, like so. And this is all we need to do here. We're just creating one endpoint that is then going to call our app service, and is going to call this function, which is going to create the account for us and just return it to the user on the front end side. Next up, we can go to the app service. Just remove this boilerplate here, like so. And over here, we're going to be initiating the Hedera client. So we're going to need the client, going to be of type client. And we're going to be grabbing our account ID from the environment file. So this is going to be from process.environment and then .hedera account. And then also the other one, which is going to be our private key, like so. Okay, and then we name this one private, like so. Next, we need to actually create the function that we are then calling in the controller. So this is going to be create account, and it's going to once again accept a mnemonic object, like so, and it's going to return to us a promise. And this promise is going to be of type Hedera account, which is going to be an interface that we're going to be creating ourselves here. Let me just create it now. So this is going to be an interface, like so, Hedera account, and this interface or this object is going to have a string, a public key, and then also a private key here, like so. So this is going to be the object that we're going to be sending back to the user on the front end side, so he can get the newly created ID, public key, and then the private key that he can then save himself. And this is going to be his wallet credentials, like so. Now let's actually implement this one by doing this.client equals, and we're going to be initiating the client here. We're going to be doing for testnet. You can do for mainnet if you're in production, but for testing, we're obviously going to be picking the for testnet one here. And we're going to be setting the operator, which is going to be our account ID, and then also our private key. So now we have the client initiated, and with this we can then interact with the actual Hedera network. After we have that, now let's go ahead and create the user's account. We're going to need a mnemonics object here, which is going to be a wait from the mnemonic dot from words, and we're going to be building this one from our mnemonics object that we are passing into this function, or the one that is sent from the user to us, and dot mnemonics dot, and then just do words here. After we have that, we can then grab the private key. This is going to be the private key for user. So we're going to be doing a wait and then just building it from this one like so. Then we also need the public key. We're also going to be doing this one from the private key itself. So the private key dot public key like so. And then we can actually create an account on the Hedera's network. So let's do const maybe new account. We're going to be awaiting a new account create transaction like so. We're going to have to be setting the key, which is going to be the newly created public key like so. And then we can set the initial balance here, which let's say are going to be 50 HBARs like so. Let's import that one, and then we need to execute it with our actual client like so. Okay, that's looking good. And now we also need to get the account ID from this one. So we're going to be getting the let's do const get receipt, and then awaiting the new account dot get receipt, and execute this one with our client as well. Then we need to get from this one the new account ID like so, and then just get the receipt dot account ID. Okay, now we have all the things that we need. So we have the private key, we have the public key, and we have the account ID, and then we can just send this back to the user on the front end side. Let's do const account, which is going to be again of type Hedera account, the interface that we just created, and we're going to be setting its ID to new account ID. Let's just do here toString. Then we're also going to be setting the private key like so, toString raw, and then lastly the public key, which is going to be from the public key toString raw like so. And then we just need to return this account. And that's about it for the backend side. Pretty simple, pretty short, but that's all that we need. So we are grabbing the account IDR and our private key. We are then calling the create account function where we are creating the new account, and then just returning this newly created account to the front end side. And I think we're ready to move to the front end. Okay, let's then continue with the front end part. So once again, in my case, I'm going to be using Angular, but you can choose whatever framework you would like to, as I'm anyhow just going to be showing the logic and how to interact with the Hashgraph SDK. So I will do npm install -global and then Angular CLI to install the CLI to start a new project, and then ng new, and I will just call my project frontend. Yes. CSS, and that's about it. Okay, so after that is done, we can then open up our project again in Visual Studio Code. What I have just done is create a services folder and then generated a new service here. You can do that by doing ng generate service and then the name of the service. And also I have just installed the Hashgraph SDK here on the front end side as well. And now after you have that, we can just go through a couple of functions here just to see how I'm authenticating this application and how I am initiating the Hedera's client. At first, we are obviously generating the mnemonics object here. So I have this function generate mnemonics that is calling the mnemonics.generate that is coming from the Hashgraph SDK. This will then give us the 24 words. It will generate us the 24 words that we are then sending back to the backend. Next up, we're making a HTTP post request, which takes in a mnemonics object that we are then calling the backend and then giving it this mnemonics object, and this will then return to us the wallet DTO, which is what we have just built. So it will give us back the ID, the public key, and then the private key. After we make that request and we have the wallet, we can then call save user wallet, which is basically just calling crypto.js and encrypting the wallet that we just got back using the password that user has set, and then we're just stringifying it and saving it into local storage under the key user wallet, and then passing it the encrypted data. After that, we then have a function that we're using to decrypt the information that we have just saved here. So basically this takes in the password again. So once user signs in, it will pass in the password, and then we will get the item and then decrypt it again, and then just return the wallet here. And this one is then used inside the initiate client, which is sort of the main function we're using to initiate the Hedera's client here. So we will get the wallet by calling the decrypt user information, and then with this decrypted wallet, we will then initiate the client with the user's ID and user's key as well. And then we're just calling either it's for mainnet or testnet, depends on what the user has set. And then we're just returning a Boolean in case this was successful or not. Next up, we have the get all transactions, which is basically HTTP GET request that is making a request to a public node from Hedera, where we are just setting it to the ID of the user and then setting the net here, whether it's mainnet or testnet, and this will then return us a list of all the transactions that happened for this user. Next up, we are interacting with Hedera's network here by doing a send a transaction one here, which is basically calling the transfer transaction, and it's sending the amount that the user wants. So this is the model here. So I have from and then to, and then the amount. So from which wallet and then to which wallet, and then the amount the user wants to send. Next up, we have the get account balance function here, which will just return how much HBARs the user actually has. We are setting the account ID to the user's ID, and then we're executing it with the client that we already initiated over here. Then we have another one, which is the verify account. This can be used for if we are sending to a valid address, or when the user wants to import his account to see if it's actually a valid account. And then the last one here is just the get HBAR price, which is just making a get request to the CoinGecko API, and this will return us the current price of the HBAR token. And that's about it. These are the main functions that build up this application, and the ones that are used to interact with Hedera's network, and then also the ones that are used to actually authenticate it or to encrypt and decrypt the wallet here on the front end side. So I want to thank you guys for watching. Hope this helped somebody. And again, if there's any interest, I'll create a full video on how I built this thing from start to finish. So thanks for watching.